Welcome back to my channel, The Historic State. Before we enter the crushing, humiliating 20 minutes that unfolded at a secured naval dockyard, a span of time that proved the wisdom of the past will always trump the arrogance of the present. Take a second to hit that like button and subscribe right now. Your support is the only engine that keeps these high-stakes stories of quiet, lethal intellect and ultimate professional justice in production. Today, we dive into a catastrophic error of judgment that almost compromised a major U.S. naval installation. We examine the story of Captain Marcus "Razor" Ross, a man whose entire existence was defined by his modern rank, his polished boots, and his blind belief in aggressive protocol. His arrogance wasn't just a personality flaw. It was a systemic liability built on a complete dismissal of historical value. And we look at Ms. Eleanor Finch, a woman he instantly dismissed as a minor trespassing liability. Ross, blinded by his own toxic authority, ordered her arrest at the secured gate. He saw her as an annoyance, a piece of obsolete human traffic interrupting his perfect command. Flown NHE was catastrophically, existentially wrong. When the base admiral arrived, his immediate, stunned reaction, a perfect snapping salute, revealed the terrifying truth. The quiet older woman he had attempted to arrest was not merely a civilian. She was a highly decorated World War II intelligence cryptographer, the architect of modern naval codes, and the admiral's personal, most revered mentor and guest of honor. This single encounter would redefine authority for every man and woman on that base. Our scene is Pier 7 at Naval Base San Diego, a secured dockyard housing America's most sensitive fleet assets. The morning sun was reflecting blindingly off the polished hull of a newly commissioned nuclear submarine, an asset Captain Marcus Ross treated like his own personal achievement. Ross was young, aggressive, and fiercely protective of his command space. He was obsessed with image, absolute control, and the idea of zero tolerance for any deviation from his rigid manual. Ross stood watching the perimeter, his mind already running the day's schedules, trying to anticipate flaws and failures. His uniform was immaculate, his rank insignias gleaming, symbols of the contemporary power he cherished. He deeply believed that everything before the age of digital command was soft, outdated, and fundamentally irrelevant. NTHE focal point of his simmering impatience this morning was a figure near the perimeter. Ms. Eleanor Finch was walking quietly, slowly, near the secured chain-link fence. She was in her late 70s, dressed in an utterly unremarkable, comfortable cardigan and sensible shoes. She was carrying only a small, elegant purse, and occasionally paused, looking out over the water with an air of deep contemplation. Ross interpreted this contemplation as simple, aimless wandering, and for Ross, her slow, deliberate movement was an insult to his sense of urgency and his security protocols. He saw an easily replaceable, insignificant old woman blocking his pristine view, a distraction that proved his subordinates were not vigilant enough to sweep the perimeter clean of civilian debris. He roared into his radio, his voice sharp with irritation. "Security Team 1, detain that civilian at the chain link. She's in a restricted area. I want her removed and processed for trespassing. Use the standard, firm protocol. Do not delay." NTWO massive, heavily armed Marines, trained to follow Ross's commands without question, jogged towards Ms. Finch. Their sheer size and visible weaponry were meant to intimidate and expedite compliance. Ross, however, was not content to watch. He strode over himself, his chest puffed out, enjoying the exercise of his absolute, unassailable authority. He stopped directly in front of Eleanor, casting a large shadow over her. NHE boomed, ensuring his voice carried to the guards and the nearest watchtower. "Ma'am, you are in a highly restricted area. You have violated federal law. I am Captain Marcus Ross. Identify yourself and present your credentials immediately. We do not tolerate unauthorized movement near our assets." Eleanor Finch stopped. She looked up at the towering, furious captain with an unnervingly calm, steady look. It was a look that contained neither fear nor anger, only a detached, crystalline clarity that Ross instantly found infuriating. She carried the effortless, quiet confidence of someone who had seen global conflicts come and Goen NSHE replied softly, her voice carrying a clear, almost educated, and utterly controlled tone. Captain, my identity is not relevant to your current jurisdiction, and I am not trespassing. I was merely observing the tide line. She paused, then added, I suggest you call the Admiral's office before proceeding further. Tell them Eleanor Finch is waiting. Now Ross's face tightened with sudden, blind rage. The simple refusal to submit, coupled with the mention of the Admiral's name, was an act of insubordination in his mind. He leaned closer, his voice laced with pure contempt. I don't call anyone, ma'am. I am the authority here. You are a low-level civilian attempting to compromise a security barrier. Your refusal to comply is now resisting a lawful order. Do you think your age gives you immunity here? You are just a trespasser. Now move or my men will assist you. Eleanor simply returned his gaze. Her eyes momentarily flickered, not with fear, but with a deep, private sadness. The sadness of a master witnessing profound incompetence. She spoke 3 quiet words that cut deeper than any shout. I disagree, Captain. Your reading of the situation is fundamentally flawed. She made no move to retreat. Her feet were planted. Her small purse remained in her hand. Her silence was a perfect, unassailable defense, frustrating Ross immensely because it robbed him of the emotional reaction he craved. He saw a defiant old woman. He completely missed the fact that her posture was that of a master codebreaker who had faced down threats far greater than a loud captain. He was so focused on her simple cardigan, he couldn't comprehend the immense knowledge stored behind her eyes. Ross was about to give the final physical order to the Marines to detain her, his finger twitching toward his sidearm, when the insistent noise of the approaching motorcade pierced the tense silence. It was the Admiral's command vehicle, a black, heavily armored sedan, arriving precisely at 0900 hours, and Admiral Charles Vance stepped out. He was the commander of the entire Pacific Fleet, a towering figure in a perfectly tailored uniform, known for his measured intensity, his razor-sharp memory, and his professional discipline. His presence instantly made Captain Ross's own authority seem small, and Ross immediately snapped into a perfect, chest-out salute, his focus entirely on his commanding officer, hoping to score points for vigilance. Admiral, sir? Apologies for the noise. I am currently dealing with an unauthorized civilian trespasser at the perimeter who is refusing to identify herself. We have the situation under control. Admiral Vance's eyes, however, were not on Ross's salute or his pristine uniform. They were fixed on the small, quiet figure standing near the fence. The Admiral's measured intensity instantly vanished. It was replaced by an expression of profound, almost reverent shock and immediate, total focus. It was as if every threat in the world had dissolved, replaced by a single, overwhelming priority. The Admiral's salute to Ross instantly dropped mid-motion, an almost imperceptible flaw in protocol that spoke volumes. His entire body snapped to a state of rigid, immediate, unquestioning attention. It was a posture of submission and utter respect rarely seen from a 4-star admiral. A gesture usually reserved for the president or the chairman of the Joint Chiefs in HE took 3 long, purposeful strides past the bewildered Captain Ross, completely ignoring him, and stopped directly in front of Eleanor Finch in HE, did not salute her in the traditional military sense. He placed his right hand over his heart in a gesture of deep personal honor, respect, and deep gratitude. NHE spoke, his voice no longer the booming command voice of the fleet, but a voice filled with overwhelming sincerity and warmth. Eleanor, goodness, I am so sorry. We should have had a proper reception team waiting for you at the gate. I was so focused on security, I completely missed the one person who makes all this security possible. Captain Ross stood frozen, his perfect world of hierarchy shattering around him. His mouth hung open. Eleanor. The Admiral was addressing his trespasser by her first name, with a gesture of profound, historical reverence. The Marines flanking them stood rigid, unsure if they should salute the woman or the Admiral. NTHE Admiral then slowly turned, his face now a thundercloud of absolute icy rage directed entirely at Captain Ross. And HE pointed a finger, not at Ross's uniform, but directly at his face. Captain Ross, you were immediately relieved of command. You just accused the single most important guest on this entire base of trespassing. Your arrogance and your reliance on raw rank has blinded you to the very foundation of this Navy. Admiral Vance then turned back to Eleanor, and then, using a voice that rang with the full devastating authority of the United States Navy, he addressed the assembled security team, and the now shattered Captain NHE announced, his voice booming across the pier. "Attention! You are looking at Ms. Eleanor Finch. She is not a trespasser. She is a Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. She is the World War II intelligence cryptographer who personally broke the Japanese Navy's highest level code, a strategic move that saved the lives of over 10,000 sailors." NNTHE Admiral's voice rose, crushing Ross with every word. "And furthermore, Captain, Ms. Finch did not just break the enemy's code. She wrote the foundational algorithm and the security architecture for the secure communication system that you and I rely on today, the very communications protocol that links this vessel to the Pentagon. She is the mathematician and academic mentor who taught me my entire understanding of intelligence architecture 15 years ago. She is the reason we won the war, and she is the reason you have a job." Captain Ross stared at the woman he had just scorned. Not a civilian trespasser, but a living legend, the architect of his base's core security, and the Admiral's personal, most revered mentor. His aggressive rage was gone, replaced by the profound, chilling horror of absolute, immediate professional ruin. The entire formation watched as the man who prized his 3 golden eagles was utterly dismantled by a woman whose greatest honors were decades old and completely invisible. Eleanor Finch simply looked at the trembling captain, her gaze calm, composed, and unassailable. She spoke one final quiet word to the Admiral. "Charles, protocol is important, but rigid enforcement without historical context is often more dangerous than any intruder." NNHER quiet brilliance taught the arrogant captain and the entire security detail a crushing, unforgettable lesson. Never mistake age or simplicity of dress for weakness. The true power structure is not always the one you can see. The woman who walks with the least noise often holds the most terrifying, unassailable historical command. NNT, thank you for watching the Historic State. If this incredible story of hidden genius, shattered arrogance, and the final, crushing moment of professional justice moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us, do you think the lessons from the past are still the most relevant? Because here, we believe that the greatest defense is not the height of the fence, but the unseen, quiet wisdom that designed the entire system.